Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. So, Emilia Perez, let's talk about this movie that is sweeping the Oscar nominations. 13 Academy Award nominations for a movie that generally asks the question, what if Scarface became Mrs. Doubtfire? But has confusing perspectives, terrible, and I mean this in the most generous and liberal way possible, terrible musical numbers, and an ending that insists upon itself so much that you really walk away going, what in the ever-loving ass did I just watch? Now listen, I have the mantra of there are no bad movies, and Emilia Perez is not what you would call a bad movie. Is it a good movie? In parts, yes. I will fully acknowledge that. In parts, the story kept me engaged. In parts, the story kept me going. And then it stops and does these, musicals, numbers that are just really ridiculous. Some work, I'll fully admit. Some songs work, but like we're talking like one, I think, and it was just the one with the child, and as a dad that got me. But other than that, it's a wildly pretentious concept. And I'm just like, if you've seen the trailer, you might not fully, I don't know. Look, basically this movie suffers from a big problem is it changes perspectives 40 minutes into the movie. This is a 2-hour and 12-minute film. For the first 40 minutes, you follow Zoe Saldana's character, Rita. And then for the last hour and a half, you follow Emilia Perez. Why does it change perspectives? I don't know. Just kind of felt the need to do that. I mean, Rita's there throughout the whole movie in ways that don't always really make the most amount of sense considering, but at the same time, it's kind of like, all right, and then the whole thing just turns into a family drama brought together in the end by a total what the fuck ending that just makes you kind of go, okay. The ending of Emilia Perez, I'm not going to spoil what it is, but they needed to end the movie, and that's essentially just what they did. They just ended the movie. They're like, okay, like we need an out, like they've written the script. They're 180 pages in, and they're like, everyone dies. The end. like because sometimes screenwriters will do that. They get locked into a loop and they go, how do I get out of this? And then they just jokingly write, everyone dies, the end. No. And Emilia Perez, it's effectively the, like, not everyone, but it's effectively like the ending. They just kind of go like, okay, and that's that. I don't want to go full into the story too much, largely because I'm going to talk about that when I do a patio commentary on it, because there's a lot to say. Like I said, good, bad, and the other. There's a lot to say about the movie, but when I'm thinking about this Oscar situation with them and then winning winning 4 Golden Globes for Best Motion Picture, Musical, or Comedy, Best Supporting Actress for Zoe Saldana, the Best Song for El Mal, and the Best Non-English Language Film. Okay. I mean, like, for one, Zoe Saldana is fine. She's no better than she's honestly better in the Guardians of the Galaxy movies than it is here. Here, it's just a lot of like, the movie is subtitled. The movie is in Spanish, good Spanish and bad Spanish, depending if you're Selena Gomez, who, by the way, only had like 3 weeks to learn Spanish. And she's 3rd generation Mexican American. She doesn't speak Spanish natively. So she had to learn Spanish, even learning where to sing the songs in Spanish. And it just does not. It just doesn't, like it. You can tell. I lived in Southern California for 15 years. My Spanish would probably be as good as hers. That is how, and I don't know any Spanish. It just would sound terrible if I tried. I mean, I don't even like to say gracias because I feel like I say like gracias. Like I just don't have that inflection. I could never be in a Spanish language film, and the language is beautiful, which is terrible. But anyway, this particular thing is just like, it's showing you the biggest problem with Hollywood. There's arguments being made right now about Emilia Perez's win being woke, being DEI, being all of these things. And I'm just going to say this right now, and this is going to probably piss off a few people, but understand why I say it like this. If Emilia Perez sweeps the Oscars, because it's nominated for 13 Academy Awards, like Best Picture, Best Director, Best Actress, Best Supporting. I mean, for crying out loud, Margaret Qualley didn't get nominated for Best Supporting for The Substance, and Lily Rose Depp didn't get nominated for Best Actor or Best Actress for Nosferatu. But Karla Sofía Gascón, she got it, and fine, she's okay in the role, right? But it's also like, this is so pretentious at times, especially when she's playing the male version of herself. It's very interesting. Like I said, it kind of insists upon itself, to quote the Family Guy joke at this particular point. But this movie is up for a lot of awards, and Hollywood doesn't like to be seen as not having their finger on the pulse of culture, right? Hollywood, and I don't like to use the term Hollywood elites very often. I think it's kind of pretentious to say, but you could make the argument that the upper echelon of the awards, okay, they don't ever want to be seen as not being like either progressive or trying to give a voice to marginalized groups. Not to say that should never be the case, but I've always argued that movies should largely be judged on merit rather than message. And the biggest problem that these movies have nowadays is that so many of them are judged on message rather than merit. And this is a movie that has maligned the trans community. It's maligned the Hispanic community. It has offended musicians and singers for its terrible music. It didn't need to be a musical. I don't know why they did that. I need to research the movie more. It might be part of the original opera. I think it's because the original story wasn't operatic, which I, again, need to learn more about. But still, it's like, this is a story that is interesting in part. It's interesting. A cartel leader decides that he has consolidated all power. He no longer wants to be a cartel leader, and he's always identified since child as being a she, but never was in the ability to ever live that life. And now has millions upon millions upon millions of dollars, and decides to leave it all behind, to transition to being a woman. And then goes back years later in order to basically just kind of reconnect with her kids while under the auspice of being their aunt. Oh, but then she's going to go and start trying to uncover the corpses of some of the people that her cartel might have killed. Other cartels might have killed. It's this whole thing. Again, the concept is interesting when you look at the idea of redemption and everything else, but we're not even talking about that because that is not any part of the goddamn conversation about this movie. All right. I'm kind of getting into the audio side, so I apologize. This movie, if it goes to the Academy Awards, and you got to remember, the Academy Awards are made up of several thousand voting members. They have changed the way that they've done things. They got new leadership a number of years ago, and the Academy this is 2018, right? So you had Jada Pinkett Smith, I think in 2017 or 2016, kind of run with the Oscars So White campaign, which was designed to call out the fact that the Oscars seem to just kind of give awards to white people, which is true, they do. And so then there was a leadership change, and they brought in more people, and then they wanted to expand the voting block, right, to get more people into the Academy to be able to vote. Then they changed it to where if you are an older Academy member and you've been around for a long time and you never won an award, but you're part of the Academy, unless you're actively working in the industry, you can no longer vote. They started clearing the voting rolls, right? Really, they just started booting people out of the Academy in order to consolidate numbers, I think, and to some extent, give it to more of a modern age of people, which is also fine in my mind. But the Academy has also just lost relevance in the last couple of years, right? I mean, I was joking around today with a friend of mine, and I'm like, I don't even know what won last year. And he just looks at me like, what the fuck? Or he says to me like, what the fuck? And I'm like, oh, right, it was Oppenheimer. I still haven't seen it, and I don't care to. Nolan lost it for me a long time ago, and that might, but there's reasons for that. That's all back to the Dark Knight Rises and everything else. And also Interstellar's last act is just nonsense. But nobody ever wants to talk about that. We will talk about that one day. But anyway, there's a lot going on in the world right now, especially with the new administration, especially with the attack on certain people's rights that is going to be coming out of this new administration. And as a result of that, Hollywood is most likely going to give all of the awards to Emilia Pérez as a way to give a middle finger to the administration, to where things are, to what's going on. And that is just what they're probably going to do. And I think that's a bad idea. I think that's a real bad idea. I think if you're going to give, like, if you're going to legitimately give a subpar movie, right? Like a movie that is so blatantly Oscar bait, but nowhere near the caliber it should be. All of these awards and recognition because you want to like stick it to the man. I think you undercut the idea of what the Academy Awards should be. And I think there are people out there who will vote that way because they feel they have to, because they don't want to rock the boat. They don't want to do that. But I have a feeling at the same time, we're going to see articles come out about how a lot of the older voting bloc that is still active in the Academy hasn't watched Emilia Pérez. And then you're going to see articles coming out attacking those people, saying like it's either transphobic for them to not want to watch it or whatever the hell they're going to want to say. Because at this point, we're probably going to see a fair amount of bullying coming out of the industry, at least the trades, on that. And that is why I think if this movie does win, it is in the way that, because it's not, I'm sorry, it's not worthy. It's just not worthy. Nothing to do with it's just like the presentation of the film. I thought the story was sweet. I did. I enjoyed the story. And I thought the acting was fine. And I enjoyed, I didn't regret my time watching it. But it's so far beneath the caliber of what you would expect. And it's not being held up on its merits. And I don't like that people do that. I don't like that people do that with art. I think that it's it's a way for these, I don't like it. I just don't like it. I never have. And so if it wins, it's going to probably end up having that argument of this was a DEI win. And I don't like even the term DEI, for crying out loud, but they're going to have a valid argument to be made there, because the merit of the movie is not going to be reflective of its awards wins. And that's just the truth of it. There's far greater films. I mean, The Substance, for crying out fucking loud. That movie should have been the thing everyone in Hollywood rails about, because it is calling out the toxic side of the industry and how women are held to a different standard the older they get. Not brutal cartel drug leader becomes transitions and then decides to go and, undo all the wrongs, which is not even what happens. And then becomes a fucking, oh my God, I don't want, I'm like, Jesus. If you like the movie, let me know. If you didn't like the movie, let me know. But I'm telling you guys, this is just going to prove one way or the other that the academies are toast, and they're doing this more for attention than merit. And you know what? You should support any movie you want to support, obviously. But I think this is one of the reasons why a lot of people are really kind of tuning into smaller movies and more artistically driven films. Although, I mean, I don't want to say that, because this movie is artistically driven, even if it's driven from a place of straight up megalomania, because the director is flat out under fire for completely misrepresenting Hispanic culture and trans culture and things like that. And he doesn't care. He flat out said, he's like, I didn't need to learn any of this stuff. And it's okay, at least you admit it. And Hollywood is still going to reward it for its inauthenticity versus anything else. So anyway, your thoughts, your opinions. This has been a long rant, I fully admit. If you made it this far, do me a favor and just type substance in the chat so I know. I'll talk to you guys later, and peace out.